The wind howled across the white wastelands of Etrusphore, a barren moon where blizzards could bury whole cities in less than an hour. The outpost known as Kellen's Rest, a former mining station converted into a repair depot, squatted low beneath the swirling frost. Its walls were reinforced with titanium alloy and thermal shielding, but even so, the cold seeped through every vent and crack. Inside, Tavian Kellen, a broad-shouldered man with scars on his face and grease embedded in his fingernails, hunched over an ancient plasma regulator. He was a veteran mechanic, once celebrated for keeping the Outer Rim fleets alive during the wars of attrition. Now he lived alone, fixing scavenged machines, speaking more often to the ghosts of engines than to living people. The storm outside wasn't unusual, but the pounding on his blast doors was. At first, he thought it was the shifting ice, but then it came again, measured, deliberate. He swore under his breath and pulled on his insulated coat. Opening the door in such weather was madness, but Tavian's instincts, honed from decades of surviving battlefields and desolate moons, told him someone was out there. When the airlock hissed open, he nearly staggered back. 15 towering figures stood in the snow, their armor glistening with frost. The helmets were reptilian, scaled with iridescent plates, and their eyes glowed faintly gold through the visors. They carried long energy halberds, though the storm had nearly frozen the weapons to their gauntlets. "By the void," Tavian muttered. "Dragon warriors." They were legend, an order of genetically engineered soldiers, bred from the DNA of draconic beasts unearthed on distant worlds. They served no nation, only balance, intervening in wars when the scales of power tipped too far. Few had seen one, let alone 15, all together. The lead warrior removed her helm. A woman's face emerged, fierce and sharp, with scales patterned faintly along her cheeks. Steam curled from her lips as she spoke. "We need shelter, mechanic. The storm is worse than our cloaks can withstand. Will you grant us passage?" Tavian hesitated. Hosting dragon warriors could paint a target on his outpost, but leaving them to freeze was unconscionable. He stepped aside. "Get in before the ice decides your decorations." They filed inside, their heavy boots thudding against the metal flooring. Heat washed over them, and frost steamed from their armor. Tavian sealed the blast doors and guided them toward the common chamber, where the thermal core glowed orange. The night of shelter. 15 dragon warriors crowded around the heater, their scaled cloaks dripping melted frost. Tavian busied himself making nutrient broth, though his supplies were limited. "I never thought I'd see your kind outside of a holovid," he said, ladling broth into dented metal bowls. The female leader inclined her head. "I am Kilira, captain of this wing. We were escorting a convoy through the Vaynar Rift when we detected hostile pursuit. To avoid interception, we diverted, but the storm trapped us here." "Hostile pursuit." Tavian's brow furrowed. "By who?" Kilira's golden eyes flickered. "The Avocado Armada." Tavian blinked, certain he had misheard. "The what now?" Another warrior, his voice deep like grinding stone, clarified. "Avocado-class frigates. A fleet of 105. Organic hulls, green-veined armor, shaped like the fruit your people once cultivated. They're the war machines of the Nutriform Syndicate." Tavian chuckled despite himself. "So, you're telling me there are over 100 killer spaceships out there shaped like avocados?" Kilira's stare was unamused. "Do not mistake their form for humor. Each one carries bioplasma cannons capable of erasing a moon in a single volley. They seek control of the rift. If they succeed, half the quadrant will kneel under their trade embargoes." The room grew heavier. Tavian set down his ladle. So, tomorrow, 105 avocado ships line up outside my doorstep? Kalira nodded once. And we must be ready. Old wounds. That night stretched long. The storm raged outside, but within the outpost, Tavian found himself haunted. Watching the warriors polish their weapons and whisper in their guttural tongue reminded him of the wars he'd fought. He remembered engines catching fire mid-battle, friends screaming in the void, orders from admirals who never touched the front lines. He drank from his flask and muttered to Kalira, who sat across from him, sharpening her halberd. Why are you here, really? Warriors like you don't wander into storms by accident. Her blade paused. She looked at him, her golden eyes catching the heater's glow. You were a soldier once, she said softly. You understand duty. The Armada's rise threatens the balance. We intended to intercept them at the rift, but their numbers were greater than expected. Our fleet scattered. We are what remains. And you came to an old man's shack for refuge. Tavian scoffed. Not much of a plan. Her lips curled faintly. Perhaps the universe sends us where we are needed most. He didn't reply, but something stirred in him, an ember long buried. Dawn in the Armada. When the storm broke at dawn, the sky cleared into a crystalline blue. Tavian stepped outside, squinting into the horizon. At first, he thought the rising black dots were storm clouds returning. But then they multiplied, gleaming green as they approached. 105 ships stretched across the sky, each shaped unmistakably like a colossal avocado. Their pits glowed with energy cores, throbbing like beating hearts. They maneuvered in perfect formation, blotting out the sun. Tavian's throat went dry. Well, I'll be damned. You weren't exaggerating. Inside, the warriors prepared. Armor plates snapped into place. Their halberds hummed with power. Kalira gave orders in clipped tones. Tavian, however, turned to his workbench. His hands itched with the old fire. He pulled out tools, parts, and half-finished machines he'd abandoned years ago. You'll never pierce their hulls with just halberds, he muttered. But maybe, just maybe. He began reconfiguring the plasma regulator he'd been tinkering with the night before. With modifications, it could overload a bioplasma core. Dangerous, unstable, suicidal, but it might work. Kalira approached. What are you building? Something stupid, Tavian growled. But stupid ideas are the only ones that ever kept me alive. The battle. The Armada descended, their shadow sweeping over the snowfields. One ship broadcasted a voice, oily and mocking. This is Commodore Vaynar of the Nutriform Syndicate. Surrender the dragon warriors, or we reduce your refuge to ash. Kalira stood firm at the outpost's gates, her halberd crackling. Come and try. The first volley struck, a torrent of green plasma slamming into the ground. The earth shook, snow vaporizing into steam. But the outpost shields, old though they were, held. Tavian had reinforced them years ago with scavenged alloys, never imagining they'd face 100 ships. The warriors leapt into the fray, wings of energy unfurling from their backs. They soared upward, slicing through the plasma fire, striking at the ships with blinding speed. Their halberds cut into organic hulls, spilling biofluids that hissed in the snow. Tavian remained below, calibrating his device. Sweat dripped down his temple as wires sparked. He mounted the regulator onto a sled drone, rigged it to broadcast a destabilizing pulse. Come on, you old beast, don't fail me now.